The first word rose from a mouth that had never formed one. Ma. It was soft like a bird testing wind. Then it grew. Mama. Head snapped around. The hall went still. The billionaire, Marcus Adeyemi, froze with a glass in his hand. His wife, Amara, dropped her scarf. In the center of the marble floor, under the glow of a crystal chandelier, the Adeyemi triplets, Zion, Zuri, and Zane, were standing. Not leaning on a chair. Not held by a nurse. Standing. Their bare feet pressed the cool stone. Their arms trembled for balance. And then, as if they had been waiting years for this exact second, they took their first steps. 1 step. 2. 3. The crowd gasped. It was supposed to be a quiet family brunch in their Lagos Atlantic villa, a house that looked over palm trees and the ocean road, but news had a way of multiplying in big houses. Cousins were there. Aunts were there. The head of Marcus's charity board had come to talk numbers. The chef had rolled in fruit carts and puff-puff. Bodyguards lined the corridor. Everyone had seen the same story for 3 years. The triplets couldn't walk. They couldn't even say simple words. Doctors had flown in from Houston, from Johannesburg, from London. Tests, therapies, schedules. The story did not change. Until now. Is this a trick? Someone whispered. It can't be, another answered, voice shaking. The 3 small faces were round and bright. Zion, the tallest by a little, had a light brown skin tone like warm honey and tight curls cropped low. Zuri, with tiny cowrie bead clips in her puff, wore a lemon-yellow dress with white socks. Zane, in a navy romper with little drums embroidered on the chest, sucked in a breath so big it made his ribcage rise. Then Zane said very clearly, "Mama?" Amara's hands flew to her mouth. She had waited for that sound through quiet birthdays and restless nights, through appointments and prayers. Tears ran before she even noticed. She sank to her knees and opened her arms. That was when people finally looked past the children, and saw her. The maid stood a few steps behind the triplets, close enough to catch them, far enough to let them choose. She was young but carried herself like an old soul. Tasha Okoro, the new hire from Port Harcourt who had started work only that week. She wore a plain sky blue uniform and soft slippers. Her skin was deep brown and flawless, her hair in neat cornrows wrapped into a bun at the nape. On her wrist dangled a thin red thread. In her hands, not high enough to be a distraction, she held a small talking drum, the kind a child could carry to church for Christmas pageant. No drumsticks. Only her palms. Her eyes never left the children. Thumb, da. Thumb, da. A heartbeat rhythm. Gentle. Steady. Like walking. She wasn't loud. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't chanting or shouting. She only tapped the leather with an open hand and hummed a tune that sounded like old rain. It flowed like lullaby and road song together. Now and then she whispered simple words between the notes, short and clear, 1 beat per word. Up. Step. Come. Safe. The children followed. Their bodies seemed to remember something their minds had forgotten. Zion reached his foot out as if stepping onto dry seasoned sand. Zuri lifted her chin. Zane blinked hard, like he was waking up from a deep nap he didn't choose. The head nanny grabbed her headscarf. "Madam, stop her." "What is this?" Her voice cracked. "No one told me she would." But Amara didn't hear anything. She crawled forward on her knees, crying and laughing at the same time. "My babies," she whispered. "My babies." Marcus came beside her, his tall frame shaking. He was a man who had built towers and crushed losses with the swing of a pen, but this was different. His eyes went red, the kind of red you can't hide. He set the glass down and it rolled, clinking harmlessly against a fruit bowl. Zion took another step. Then another. Zuri caught his elbow, steadying him like a guardian in a tiny body. Zane lifted his arms for balance. The trio moved as one, a small unit, as if they had spent their whole lives practicing this dance in a dream. They reached their parents. Fell into their arms. The room broke into noise, shouts, claps, sobs. The chef cried. The bodyguards smiled in a way that made their earpieces tilt. An aunt started praising in Yoruba. A cousin shouted in English and Igbo at the same time. And then the impossible kept going. Zuri looked up at Marcus, searching his face. Her voice was thin but firm. "Daddy," she said. "Not D, not D." A whole word like a key in the right lock. Zion touched his mother's cheek. "Mama," he repeated like proof. Zane's eyes turned toward the drum. He took a tiny step out of his mother's arms as if he remembered he had legs. He reached for Tasha. Not the drum, her hand. Tasha stopped tapping. The rhythm ended on a soft pat, the way the sea ends its run quietly at your toes. For a breath, the hall had only air and heartbeats and wonder. Who taught you this? Marcus's voice carried authority without trying. He stood, flesh and blood again, not just a headline. He looked Tasha up and down, not with suspicion, but with the desperate focus of a father who had found a door where a wall used to be. How did you know? Tasha swallowed. Her voice was low, trained by quiet rooms. My grandmother used the same rhythm in our village for babies who were late to walk, she said. Not magic, sir. Not tricks. Only love. We start with the ground and the beat. Babies feel safety. Then we add simple words. Not many. Just enough. She looked at the triplets the way people look at sunrise. They were ready before I came. I only knocked. The head nanny bristled. You call it simple, but we have done therapy too. We have schedules, charts, specialists. You cannot just waltz in with a drum and... Auntie Folake cut her off, speaking like thunder wrapped in velvet. Haba, let the children talk. As if hearing permission, Zane turned to the table. He pointed a finger at the silver tray beside the fruit. His face scrunched at the smell rising from a small cup. Somehow in the rush the cup had not spilled. Taste bad, he said slowly, each word a careful stone across a river. He shook his head. No more. Eyes moved as one, following his little hand. A pale purple syrup sat in the cup, thick as evening clouds. Amara's joy thinned with worry. What is that? She asked the head nanny. Night syrup, the nanny said too fast. For calm. For sleep. Doctor approved. We always give just a little. She glanced at the nurse, who looked elsewhere. It is routine. Tasha didn't smile now. She knelt by the table and lifted the cup to her nose. One slow inhale. Her expression changed like a door quietly locking. This is not the brand I saw listed, she said. She tapped the glass rim with a fingernail and watched how the liquid clung. And someone has been thinning it with sweet tea. Murmurs flickered around the room. Marcus took a step closer. Who mixed it? His voice could chill water. The room began to shift under the weight of the question. The charity board member slipped out of the doorway. A cousin took out her phone and put it back again. The nurse tightened her lips. The head nanny's hands shook just enough to be seen. It is the same as always, the nanny insisted. They never complained. They never spoke. Zane looked at Tasha. Drum? He asked gently, as if asking for a path through a noisy forest. Later, Tasha whispered with a small smile. You did well. Zuri pressed her cheek to her mother's shoulder. The cowrie clips in her hair clicked softly. She stared at the cup again, then at the head nanny, then back to the cup. Something like memory moved behind her eyes, a fog lifting. Marcus took the cup from Tasha and set it back down with a click that cut the air. No one leaves, he said. Not until we understand. Outside, the ocean wind shifted. Palm fronds shivered. Somewhere far in the house, a door banged shut as if the building itself had something to say. The triplets, as if guided by a shared thought, all turned their faces toward the same person at the same time. Not their parents. Not the maid. Not the nurse. A quiet man standing near the archway, dressed in a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled, a face most people forgot until they needed a car. Daryl, the driver. His eyes were on the floor. His hands were too still. Zane lifted his finger and pointed straight at him. His lips formed a shape they had never made before, a fresh-cut path for sound. He drew in breath to speak. And before the word could land, the power went out. The chandelier died. Light crashed into darkness. In the sudden hush, a small bottle somewhere toppled and shattered. A child's voice rose, clear and brave in the dark. Stop. The darkness pressed down like a hand. Someone shouted for the generator. Feet scraped the marble. Glass tinkled far away. Everyone stay where you are. Marcus's voice cut the air, steady and loud. No one moves. A thin beam of light sliced across the hall as a bodyguard snapped on a flashlight. Another followed. Circles of white floated over faces, fearful eyes, open mouths, trembling hands. In the glow, the triplets stood like small islands around Amara's knees. Tasha did not panic. She bent low, placed the little drum flat on the floor, and tapped the rim with 2 fingers. Not loud. Not fast. Just enough to make a soft ticking, like a lighthouse for children. Stand with Mama, she whispered, voice calm. Feet together. Hands on Mama's skirt. 3 small hands reached for the soft fabric. The steady tap anchored them. The generator coughed awake with a grumble, then roared, pulling the house back from night to noon. Lights flickered, then steadied. The chandelier bloomed again. But something had changed in the light. You could feel it. The room had seen itself with its eyes closed, and now everything looked sharper. "Check the side doors," Marcus told security. "Kitchen, service hall, garage." 2 guards moved. A third bent to the broken sound they had heard and found the bottle. A tiny vial knocked from somewhere onto the floor, purple syrup spreading like a bruise on the marble. The head nanny smoothed her headscarf with shaking hands. "It is chaos," she murmured, as if saying it would make it less true. Amara lifted Zuri and pressed her close. "We're okay," she whispered into the child's hair. "We're okay." Daryl, the driver, stood by the archway still as furniture, eyes lowered. When the light touched him, he blinked, then glanced toward the service corridor. Just once. Quick. Anyone could have missed it if they were not watching him, and only him. Tasha was. Her gaze followed that glance like a thread slipping under a door. Something moved in her memory at the same time, a smell, a season, a story. It rose from Port Harcourt, from a long-ago rainy afternoon when she was 15 and the neighborhood women brought their babies to Mama Okoro's front room. Mama Okoro ran a little daycare with nothing but her big laugh, 2 mats, and a wall fan that clicked. On that day, a young mother had arrived with a coughing boy, sleepy-eyed, heavy-limbed. "He's peaceful when he drinks this," the mother had said, lifting a bottle of syrup the color of sunset. Tasha had taken it, sniffed once, and felt her stomach drop. Too heavy. Too sweet. Wrong. Her grandmother, thin, straight-backed, with silver hair wrapped in indigo, had stepped behind Tasha and nodded once. "You smell like you do not love children," grandmother had said to the mother, not unkind, just true. "We will love him better." They had poured the syrup out. The boy had cried hard that day and slept light that night. Within a week he stopped coughing. Within a month he laughed for the first time. "Love first," grandmother always said, tapping her chest. "Beat next," she added, tapping her drum. Words last. The old woman wore a red thread on her wrist and tied a second one to Tasha's when she turned 18. "So you remember the order." Back in the bright hall, Tasha felt the same thread against her skin. She did not move toward Daryl. She moved toward the triplets, lowered herself to their height, and met their eyes one by one. "Do you feel safe?" she asked softly. Zane nodded. Zuri's mouth made a little line, but she nodded too. Zane looked past Tasha toward the service hall again, then back at her. He lifted 2 fingers and tapped his own thigh twice. Thumb, da. Thumb, da. His eyes asked a question without words. "Will you keep the beat if it gets loud?" Tasha smiled. "I will." A bodyguard returned. "Sir, the medicine cabinet in the nursery is open," he reported. "Lock is snapped. We found this on the floor." He held up a thin strip of metal, the kind electricians use, bent at the end like a hook. "Improvised. Clever." Another guard jogged in from the garage. "Sir, the fuel line to the generator is nicked. Small cut. Timed, from the look, like someone wanted just a minute of dark." He swallowed. "Gate guards say no cars moved." Eyes swung to Daryl again. He shifted his weight. "I've been here," he said quickly. His English carried the flat softness of a man who spoke more on roads than in rooms. "You saw me? In the arch. I don't even know where the cabinet is." Marcus stared at him. "Everyone in this house knows everything in this house," he said. "That is your job. That is why I pay you." The head nanny found her voice. "Sir, with respect, you hired her 1 week ago," she said, pointing at Tasha. "She plays a drum and now the babies are running and accusing. Children's minds are fog after illness. They point anywhere." Zuri's small hand left Amara's shoulder. She pointed not anywhere but at the purple cup again. Then at her own mouth. Then she shook her head hard, curls clicking. Amara's face tightened. "Enough," she said, her voice soft but steel. "No more of this syrup. Ever." She looked at Tasha. "You smelled something wrong?" "Yes, madam," Tasha said. "And the thickness tells me someone tampered. The brand we used when I checked the list, 2 nights ago, was lighter and had a different scent. This is not it." "Who changed our list?" Marcus asked the head nanny. "The night nurse manages ordering," the nanny said. "She is in the staff quarters." "Bring her," Marcus said. They waited. In that small wait, the whole house seemed to lean in. When the night nurse came in, her steps were slow. Her face was pale, sweat clinging to her top lip. A purple smear stained her wrist like a bruise left by a bracelet. She was holding herself too carefully, the way people do when they want to look calm but their body is a drum under skin. "Madam," she greeted, eyes skittering past Marcus. "Where did this bottle come from?" Marcus asked, holding up the cup and pointing to the syrup as if it were a person. "Which pharmacy?" "The same as always," the nurse said. "Island chemist." She swayed a little. A guard reached a hand quickly and she waved him off. I'm just hungry, she said. I've been on since last night. Tasha watched the nurse's pupils. Too wide. Her breathing too shallow. Her hand too steady for the way her voice shook. Her grandmother's training rose in her again, the thousand little signs love learns to read. Please sit, Tasha said kindly. Let me get you water. The head nanny threw Tasha a look that said, you are not in charge here. But no one stopped her. Tasha slipped to the side table, poured water and returned. As the nurse reached out, Tasha saw it. Under the cuff of the sleeve, a tiny line on the wrist, red and fresh like a scratch from metal. The exact height of a cabinet lock. The nurse drank fast. Too fast. Water ran from the corner of her mouth. She wiped it with the back of her hand. Marcus drew a breath to press the question again. He didn't need to. Because a boy's voice, new and brave and broken in the most perfect way, said a name first. Darwell. All eyes snapped to Zane. He said it again clearer. Daryl. Daryl flinched and then hardened his face into blankness. The masked drivers learn behind rearview mirrors. What do you know, little man? Marcus asked Zane gently, crouching to his height. Tell Daddy. Zane lifted one hand and moved his fingers like turning an invisible key. Then he pressed his index finger to his lips. He looked at the service corridor. Then at the night nurse's wrist. Then at the purple cup. He was drawing a map in the air the only way a child could. He saw someone, Tasha said, voice low. At night. With keys. Quiet. The head nanny scoffed. Children dream. Some dreams are true, Andy Folake said, eyes on Daryl. Bring the footage, Marcus told a guard. The nursery cam. Last 7 days. Sir, the guard said carefully, the nursery camera was disabled. Disabled? Marcus repeated in a voice that could bend steel. Wire cut, the guard said. Clean. Someone knew what they were doing. The air thinned. Even the generator seemed to hum quieter, listening. Amara held the children tighter. I thought we locked that door, she whispered. We did, Marcus said through his teeth. Tasha looked at the triplets. Can you show me with your feet? She asked softly. Where the quiet person walked? Zane surprised them. He wriggled down, set his small feet on the marble, and with serious concentration, took 3 tiny steps in a pattern. Left pause, right pause, as if counting tiles. Zuri followed. Zane copied, his brow furrowing. They turned not toward the main corridor but toward the pantry door near the back of the hall. The pantry? Amara frowned. Why the pantry? The guard closest to it opened the door. A cool smell of spices and sealed tins drifted out. Shelves. Crates. A mop bucket. A closet tucked inside with a second door, narrow, unmarked, the kind staff knows and guests do not. He pulled it. It opened onto a short service passage, the kind that runs behind big rooms like hidden veins. On the floor of that narrow passage lay a small paper bag with a pharmacy logo. Inside the bag, a neat row of little purple bottles, labels peeled off. Under the bottles, a folded white paper covered in tiny boxes and numbers. A dosing chart, printed and then updated by hand. Someone had written in blue pen beside tomorrow's date, increase before Sunday. And at the bottom of the paper, a signature too familiar to ignore. D. A dozen people spoke at once. The head nanny sputtered. Auntie Folake clapped a hand over her mouth. Amara made a sound that was not a word. Daryl moved. It was not dramatic. It was the smallest thing, his foot slid back as if to brace. But it was a choice. A decision to stand or run. A bodyguard stepped toward him. Daryl flicked his eyes to the side door, measured distance, measured weight, measured everything drivers measure in a blink, and bolted. Stop him. Marcus roared. Chairs scraped. Shoes bit marble. A guard lunged and caught fabric. The white shirt tore like paper. Daryl hit the service hall at speed. The pantry door banged. The hidden passage breathed dust. Tasha scooped the drum and tapped the beat hard now, urgent, clear, a road for small hearts to follow. With Mama, she called, and the triplets clung tight, feet rooted. In the scramble, the night nurse swayed again, tried to slip left, and crumpled. She hit the floor in a soft, terrible fold. The water glass rolled. Purple smears darkened on her wrist. In her pocket as she fell, a small card slid out, a clinic ID with her name, and a number scribbled under it that matched the last digits of a driver's phone. A guard shouted from the corridor, "He's heading to the roof." The generator gave a warning cough as if embarrassed to be part of this story and then steadied. Marcus turned to Tasha, eyes blazing and grateful and confused. Stay with them, he said. Don't let anyone near. He ran. Amara knelt by the night nurse, heart splitting between fury and the small human form on the floor. Call the doctor, she ordered the head nanny, who stood frozen like a scolded statue. Now. Tasha laid the drum gently on the floor again, beat softened, eyes on the children. Look at me, she told them. We are safe. We are strong. We are still. 3 pairs of eyes fixed on her. Their breathing matched the rhythm. The storm moved past them like rain beyond a good roof. Then Zane did something none of them expected. He pointed up, toward the ceiling, toward the roof where the chase thundered, and said clearly, danger. The word ran through the room like cold water. A second later, a scream ripped the air from above. Wood splintered. A bodyguard shouted for help. Something heavy skidded. And in the sudden awful silence that followed, a single object slid across the upstairs landing and fell through the open stairwell, bouncing step to step until it clattered onto the marble near Tasha's feet. A small ring of keys, silver, familiar, stained at the edges with a faint purple sheen. The keychain tag read in clear black letters. Nursery. The keys spun to a stop on the marble floor, the metallic clatter echoing through the vast hall like thunder trapped inside walls. Everyone froze. Marcus's voice shouted from above, sharp and heavy with rage. Hold him. Don't let him jump. Tasha's heart thudded once hard. She stood, pushing the triplets gently behind her legs. Amara gathered them close, trembling as their small fingers clung to her dress. Then came the sound, boots hammering, doors slamming, voices overlapping in panic. Roof access locked. He went toward the maintenance ladder. Sir, he's cornered. And then crash. Something shattered. A moment later, the heavy thud of a body meeting hard ground. Everyone looked up toward the glass ceiling. Through the skylight, a dark shape fell, twisting once before landing on the garden terrace below the balcony. The scream that followed was short, cut by impact. Amara turned away, clutching her children tight. Zane began to cry. Zane buried his face into her shoulder. Only Zuri stared wide-eyed, frozen, as if trying to understand what death meant. Marcus appeared at the top of the stairs, breathing hard. 2 guards followed behind him, their faces pale. It's over, Marcus said grimly, voice echoing down the stairs. He jumped. No one pushed him. For a long, strange moment, no one spoke. The air was thick with disbelief and fear, the kind that lingers long after a storm. Tasha bent, picked up the keys. They were cold in her hand, still sticky from the syrup's residue. She turned them over. Nursery, the tag read again, but on the flip side, faint letters had been scratched. P.O. Box 321, Island Chemist. Tasha's eyes narrowed. Sir, she said softly, he wasn't working alone. Marcus looked up sharply. What do you mean? The same logo we found on the paper bag, she said. The syrup bottles, the dosing chart, all from the same pharmacy. This address connects to whoever's been supplying the wrong medicine. Amara's tears slowed. So this wasn't just a mistake? No, madam, Tasha said. This was deliberate. A heavy silence fell over the hall. The head nanny spoke first, her voice shaking. But why? Why hurt innocent children? Who would gain from that? Tasha's gaze flicked toward the nurse lying unconscious on the floor. Someone who profits when they stay sick, she said quietly. Or someone who wants this family to fall. Marcus frowned, deep lines etching his face. Fall? Who would want that? I have enemies in business, but this is beyond business. Sometimes, Auntie Folake murmured, jealousy eats deeper than hunger. The doctor arrived minutes later, summoned from the nearby clinic. He checked the nurse's pulse, examined the empty syringe found in her pocket, and gave a grim nod. She'll live, he said, but she's been sedating herself. This isn't new. He turned to Marcus. Sir, you need to take those children for a full examination. Whatever was in that syrup, it may have been numbing them. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, guilt shadowing him. For 3 years they couldn't walk, because we trusted the wrong people. Tasha stepped closer. Love heals faster than any medicine, sir. What they needed was safety and touch. The syrup may have clouded their bodies, but your love brought them back when they heard it through the drum. Marcus looked at her, confused. Through the drum? She nodded. When I played, I wasn't just making sound. I was speaking to them the way the earth speaks to feet, reminding them they're still alive, still connected. The rhythm woke what the medicine silenced. He studied her face carefully, then said, You've done more in 1 week than doctors did in 3 years. I only did what love required, she said simply. At that moment, Zane tugged on Tasha's skirt. His voice was small but sure. Tasha, drum again. She smiled softly. Later, little one. Let's let everyone rest first. The doctor motioned to the guards. Get the nurse to the clinic. We'll test everything she used. As they lifted the unconscious woman onto a stretcher, a folded paper slipped from her pocket and fluttered to the ground. Tasha caught it. On it was a printed message. Delivery confirmation, 6 bottles, special formula. To D. Driver. Authorized by B. Adeyemi. Marcus froze. What? His brows knit together. That's my initial, but I never signed any order. Amara's eyes widened. Marcus, who has access to your signature stamp? Marcus's jaw tightened. Only 2 people. My personal assistant and, he stopped mid-sentence. His gaze darted to Andy Folake. And my younger brother, Benjamin. Andy Folake gasped. Benjamin? But he hasn't been here since the last board meeting. Marcus's expression darkened. That was the same week the triplets' condition worsened. A cold realization spread through the room. Tasha spoke softly, her tone steady. Then this isn't over. Someone used your brother's connection, or your brother himself, to poison your children slowly. Marcus clenched his fists. He wanted control of my company. He said I'd never have time to manage it while I was busy with sick children. I didn't want to believe he meant it literally. Zuri looked up, tiny voice trembling. Bad uncle? Amara pulled her closer. Don't worry, my love. Daddy will protect you. Tasha crouched beside the children, her eyes gentle. You're brave, she said. You saw truth before any of us did. Never forget your voices brought light back to this house. The triplets smiled faintly. A soft rain began outside, tapping the wide glass windows of the villa. The world felt cleaner somehow, as if washing away years of silence. Marcus stood tall again, his voice firm. Tomorrow I'll have every pharmacy connected to that address investigated. And if Benjamin's behind this, he'll answer for it. Andy Folake nodded slowly. Blood or no blood, evil must bow before truth. Tasha gathered the triplets near her drum. She sat cross-legged and began to play softly, a rhythm slow and warm, one that carried comfort instead of command. The children swayed gently, their small feet finding balance on the cold floor. For the first time in years, laughter bubbled from them, pure and loud, echoing through the marble hall like sunlight breaking clouds. Even Amara smiled through tears, touching her heart. It's like they're reborn, she whispered. But as Tasha's fingers moved, she saw something glint in the reflection of the drum's polished surface. A figure outside in the rain. Watching through the window. Tall. Motionless. Umbrella tilted low. And when lightning flashed across the courtyard, she caught a clear glimpse of the face. Benjamin Adeyemi. Standing in the rain. Smiling. Then he raised his phone to his ear and walked away slowly into the storm. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. And tell us where you're watching from. The rain poured harder that night, drumming against the mansion's glass walls like a warning. Thunder rolled in slow waves over the Atlantic, and flashes of lightning painted the garden silver. Tasha stood by the window after everyone had gone upstairs, her gaze fixed on the place where Benjamin had stood just hours earlier. The echo of his smile stayed in her mind, the kind of smile that didn't belong to family but to someone who had already crossed a line. She wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders. In the corner of the living room, the triplets slept together on a couch, warm under a thick blanket, their tiny hands tangled like vines. The soft hum of the generator mixed with the sound of their breathing. Marcus had locked himself in his study, calling security contacts and private investigators. Amara had tried to rest but failed. She had gone to pray instead, her whispering voice drifting faintly from the private chapel down the hall. The house was not quiet, it was holding its breath. Then click. The back door latch. Tasha's heart jumped. She moved quietly across the room, bare feet soundless on the marble floor. She reached the corridor and saw a shadow glide past the kitchen door. Someone was inside the house. She bent down, removed her slippers, and reached for the small talking drum she had left near the wall. Her grandmother's words whispered through her head, "The drum speaks truth when mouths stay silent." She held her breath and listened. A faint sound came, metal scraping. A key turning in the lock of the office door. Marcus's office. She crept closer. Inside, the glow of a small flashlight moved across the desk. The intruder's face caught the beam, sharp jaw, soaked hair, expensive watch. Benjamin Adeyemi. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had been gone for months, living between Abuja and London, supposedly working on new business ventures. Now he was here, breaking into his brother's office, soaking wet but calm as if he owned the darkness. Tasha's first instinct was to run for help, but she stopped herself. A single wrong sound could alert him before the guards arrived. She crouched low and whispered a soft rhythm on the drum, barely audible, a coded signal she had once used in her village to call for help without raising alarm. Thump-da, thump-da-da. The sound carried through the corridor like a heartbeat under rain. Upstairs, one of the guards who had grown used to her rhythms stirred, recognizing it. He started down the stairs. Meanwhile, Benjamin opened Marcus's drawer, pulled out a thick envelope stamped confidential, and began flipping through papers. He spoke softly to himself, his voice low but clear. He thought he could push me out of the board, take everything. Let's see how he explains 3 years of medical negligence to the press. Tasha's eyes widened. He's not just angry, he's setting Marcus up. Then he pulled out his phone, snapping photos of the documents. Marcus's signed approvals for imported drugs, the same brand as the poison syrup. Tasha realized the truth in a flash. Benjamin had used Marcus's company seal, then forged orders that made Marcus look guilty. If those photos leaked, the world would believe Marcus had poisoned his own children. She took a step forward, but the floor creaked. Benjamin froze. His head turned sharply. The flashlight beam sliced across the wall, then stopped on her. Who's there? Tasha didn't move. Benjamin walked closer, the beam climbing her face. Recognition dawned. You, the maid. He smiled faintly. You're smarter than you look. Tasha straightened, clutching the drum. You shouldn't be here, sir. The children are sleeping. Benjamin laughed softly. So were a lot of people when I did what I had to do. He stepped closer, his tone mocking. You have no idea who you're working for, do you? My brother wears goodness like a suit. But he's worse than me. That's a lie, she said evenly. He tilted his head. Is it? Who built a pharmaceutical branch that sells expired drugs under new labels? Who funded the research that kept those children sick just to win public sympathy for his foundation? Tasha blinked, confused. You're lying. Am I? He held up one of the documents, waving it like a flag. Here. His signature. His money. His scandal waiting to happen. Footsteps echoed behind them, Marcus and 2 guards entering through the other door. Benjamin turned, eyes cold. You brought an audience. Perfect. Benjamin, Marcus said, his voice dark as the sky. Drop the papers. Benjamin smiled. You want to save your image, not your children. You always cared more about headlines than hearts. Marcus's voice rose. You tried to kill them. Benjamin's smirk deepened. I didn't have to. I only gave them something to keep you distracted. The poison was your greed. You built an empire and left your family in hands you didn't even know. All I did was nudge. The guards moved forward, but Benjamin lifted his phone. Another step and I send this file to every news outlet in Lagos. Your foundation collapses before morning. Marcus's jaw tightened. You wouldn't. Benjamin's smile sharpened. Watch me. Tasha's mind raced. She could see it clearly, the storm, the glare of the phone, the shaking tension in Marcus's shoulders. Any wrong move would destroy the entire family. Then she remembered her grandmother's 3rd lesson. When truth hides behind noise, silence will guide it out. She looked down at the drum. The children had responded to rhythm before. They'd remembered what words couldn't reach. Maybe now rhythm could expose what speech couldn't prove. She took 1 step forward. Benjamin, she said softly, you're right about one thing, sound travels fast. He frowned. What? She struck the drum once. The sound bounced off the marble walls, deep and pure. In the room above where the triplets slept, 3 small heads stirred. Zane mumbled softly, Mama? Tasha played again, her rhythm rising into a lullaby. The sound carried up the staircase, weaving through the house like a spell of memory. Benjamin turned, uneasy. Stop that. But then faint footsteps pattered on the stairs. The triplets appeared, barefoot, eyes sleepy but shining. Zane, Amara gasped from the hallway. Zane, Zuri, go back to bed. They didn't listen. They walked straight into the office, drawn by the drum's beat. And then, before anyone could stop them, Zane pointed at Benjamin and said one word, clear, sharp, and certain. Liar. The entire room froze. Benjamin blinked, startled. What did you just say? Zuri stepped forward next to her brother. You hurt us. Zane added, trembling but brave, bad man. Marcus's breath caught. For the first time the children were speaking freely without fear or stammer. Benjamin's mask cracked. He took a step back. You, You don't know what you're saying. They're confused. Tasha's hand stayed on the drum. No, she said quietly. They remember. Marcus turned to his brother, fury and pain tangled in his face. You drugged them so you could destroy me? Benjamin's silence was the answer. Before he could react, the guards closed in. He tried to raise his phone, but Marcus grabbed it, twisting his wrist. The device slipped and hit the ground, screen shattering. Take him, Marcus ordered. As they pulled Benjamin toward the hall, thunder cracked again and rain pounded harder against the windows. Amara ran to the triplets, kneeling and hugging them so tightly they squealed. My babies. You spoke. You spoke. Zane smiled faintly through sleepy eyes. Tasha drum. Tasha wiped a tear she hadn't noticed falling. You found your voices, she whispered. Marcus looked at her, humbled. You saved them. You saved all of us. But Tasha didn't smile yet. She looked at the broken phone on the floor, still glowing faintly. A file upload bar blinked on the cracked screen, stuck at 96%. Her heart skipped. The documents, Marcus's forged approvals, were being sent somewhere. She grabbed the phone. Sir, it's not over. Someone else is receiving the files. Marcus's eyes widened. Who? The progress bar ticked to 97%. Whoever Benjamin was working with, she said. And they already have the proof to destroy your family name. The lights flickered as another lightning flash tore through the sky, and the upload bar hit 100%. The screen went black. And Tasha whispered the words no one wanted to hear. It's been sent. The next morning broke with a heavy silence. The storm had passed, but the air around the Adeyemi mansion was still thick with tension, like the sky was holding its breath, waiting for the next blow. Marcus sat in his study, staring at the shattered phone on his desk. His eyes were sunken, sleepless, the weight of everything pressing down on him. The documents that could destroy him, now in someone else's hands. Amara stood by the window, arms folded tightly around herself. Marcus, she said softly, what happens now? He didn't answer. He was watching the phone screen that had flickered back to life. The upload notification had disappeared, but a strange new message had appeared in its place. We have the files. Expect contact. B.O. Marcus's brow furrowed. B.O.? Auntie Folake stepped into the room, still in her morning wrapper, her hair tied with a scarf. B.O.? Those initials sound familiar. Tasha, who had just entered carrying a tray of tea, paused mid-step. Benjamin's partner? She asked. Marcus nodded slowly. Could be. Or worse, someone higher. The triplets' laughter drifted from the living room. For the first time in years they were speaking small words, learning fast, playing like normal children. The sound should have brought peace. But instead it made the fear heavier. The more they healed, the more Marcus realized what could be lost if the wrong person got those files. Amara looked toward the children, tears in her eyes. Whoever this B.O. is, they can't win. Not after everything we've just gotten back. Marcus clenched his jaw. They won't. He stood, buttoned his shirt and grabbed his car keys. I'm going to the island chemist branch. That's where this started. Tasha stepped forward quickly. Sir, please, don't go alone. Whoever B.O. is, they're not afraid to hurt people. Remember the syrup. Remember Benjamin. Marcus looked at her, hesitated, then nodded. You're right. You come with me. Amara frowned. Tasha? Why her? Because she's the only one who's been 2 steps ahead since this began, Marcus said. She sees what others miss. Amara didn't argue. She just whispered, be careful. The drive to Victoria Island was quiet. Morning sun spilled across wet roads. Lagos had shaken off the night storm, but puddles reflected clouds like broken mirrors. Marcus's black SUV rolled past street vendors and traffic police until it stopped outside Island Chemist, a gleaming, white building with green glass doors and gold signage. At first glance, it looked like any other pharmacy chain, clean, professional, ordinary. But as soon as they stepped inside, something felt off. Too quiet. Too polite. A woman in her mid-40s with caramel skin and braided hair greeted them with a flawless smile. Her ID tag read Brenda Osifo, manager. Tasha's eyes widened slightly. B.O. Good morning, Brenda said, her voice smooth like oil. Mr. Adeyemi, this is a surprise. We haven't seen you here in a long while. Marcus folded his arms. I'm here because one of your products nearly destroyed my children. Brenda's smile didn't falter. Oh, that sounds serious. Why don't we step into my office to discuss it privately? They followed her into a small glass-walled office at the back. The walls were covered in framed photos, Brenda with government health officials, Brenda at charity events, Brenda shaking hands with corporate partners. "Please sit," she said, gesturing to the chairs. "Now what seems to be the issue?" Marcus dropped the small evidence bag on her desk, the purple syrup bottle from the mansion. "This," he said flatly. "It came from your pharmacy. But its content doesn't match the formula on the label." Brenda picked up the bag delicately, studying it as if it were nothing. "Strange," she murmured. "But our inventory shows no such discrepancy. Perhaps one of your staff purchased a counterfeit." Tasha spoke softly. "The bottle carries your logo. The same as the ones in our pantry. Someone authorized a delivery in your name, signed by D. and countersigned B. Adeyemi." Brenda's expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened slightly around the bag. "I see." Marcus leaned forward. "You're going to tell me what Benjamin was doing here?" She tilted her head. "Your brother?" "Oh, Benjamin Adeyemi was one of our best investors. He helped us expand our product line. But I assure you, Mr. Adeyemi, our business is entirely legal." "Legal?" Marcus's voice hardened. "You poisoned my children." Brenda's calm cracked for the first time. "Watch your words, sir. Accusations like that can ruin lives." Tasha noticed it, a subtle signal, the flick of Brenda's wrist toward the security camera in the corner. A red light blinked twice, then turned green. Recording stopped. Tasha's stomach dropped. Brenda leaned back in her chair, her voice low and dangerous now. "You should have stayed quiet, Marcus. We gave you an empire. All you had to do was play your role, the grieving father with the perfect charity story. But no, you brought in that drum girl and ruined everything." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "You were behind this." Brenda smiled coldly. "You think billionaires stay billionaires without dirty work? Your foundation's medicine imports gave us government contracts. You needed public sympathy. We provided it. The deal was simple. Until your wife started asking questions." Tasha stepped forward, anger flashing in her eyes. "So you made children suffer to keep a lie alive?" Brenda's gaze snapped to her. "You're bold for a maid. You don't understand power, girl. It's not built on kindness. It's built on control." Marcus slammed his palm on the desk. "You're done, Brenda?" But Brenda didn't flinch. She pressed a button under her desk. The door behind them clicked, the lock sliding into place. "I'm afraid," she said softly, "you're not leaving until I've finished what Benjamin started." Marcus turned sharply, trying the door handle. It was sealed. Tasha's eyes darted to the tinted window. Two men in dark suits were walking toward the office from the outer hall. "Sir," she whispered, "we need to move, now." Brenda smirked. "Move where?" "Lagos is full of noise, Mr. Adeyemi. No one here screams through bulletproof glass." She rose from her chair, reaching into her drawer. But before she could pull out whatever hid there, Tasha slammed her drum onto the glass table. Thump. The deep sound rattled the room. Brenda flinched. Tasha struck again. "Did you aim?" And with one swift kick, she shattered the glass wall beside her. The sharp crack of broken glass filled the office. "Run!" she shouted. Marcus grabbed her hand, and together they burst through the opening. The two men outside reacted too late. Marcus shoved one aside, Tasha swung her drum at the other's knee, and they sprinted down the corridor. Behind them, Brenda's furious voice rang out. "Stop them." They hit the main door just as security alarms screamed to life. Outside, Lagos traffic roared like salvation. They jumped into the SUV, Marcus slamming the gear into reverse. As they sped away, Tasha looked back through the window. Brenda Asafo stood in the doorway of the pharmacy, raincoat over her shoulders, a phone to her ear. Her smile had returned, calm, cruel, confident. And though Tasha couldn't hear her words, she could read her lips as clearly as a curse. Plan B, start with the wife. The SUV tore down the Lekki Ape Expressway, engine growling through sheets of rain. Marcus gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles, eyes darting between the road and the rearview mirror. His face, usually calm and commanding, now looked carved from stone. Tasha sat beside him, clutching the talking drum against her chest. Every sound outside, the honk of Kiki riders, the splash of tires through puddles, felt like footsteps chasing them. Plan B, start with the wife, she whispered, replaying Brenda's words in her mind. Marcus heard her and pressed the accelerator harder. "We have to get home now." The wipers screeched across the windshield, flinging water aside as the car raced past the toll gate. Traffic lights blurred red and green. When they reached the Adeyemi mansion gates, Marcus didn't even wait for the guards to open them. "Move!" he shouted, and they swung open just in time for the SUV to skid into the courtyard. Amara was already outside on the porch, a shawl wrapped around her, the triplets beside her. The look on her face stopped Marcus cold, fear, confusion, relief all mixed together. "Marcus, what's happening?" she cried. He jumped out of the car. "Inside, now." The guards spread out, securing the compound as Marcus herded everyone into the house. Tasha followed, scanning every shadow, every corner. She had learned in her village that danger rarely knocks, it waits behind open doors. Inside, Marcus locked the doors, then turned to Amara. "Someone's after you," he said, trying to steady his voice. "It's not just Benjamin anymore. It's Brenda Osifo. She's the one behind everything." Amara blinked. "The pharmacy manager?" "She was Benjamin's partner," Tasha said. "They used your foundation to move tainted medicine. When you started asking questions, they silenced the children to keep you distracted." Amara's face turned pale. "Dear God." Before she could say more, the triplets tugged at her dress. Zane pointed toward the hallway. "Mama," a sound. Everyone froze. A soft creak echoed from upstairs, the sound of a door slowly closing. Marcus exchanged a look with Tasha. "We locked the house," he said. Tasha's voice was calm but firm. "Then someone's already inside." He grabbed a metal candle stand from the table and started up the staircase. "Stay with them," he told Tasha and Amara. But the triplets wouldn't stay put. Zane whispered, "Drum," his small hand shaking. Tasha understood. The rhythm had guided them before. It made them feel safe, but it also warned them when danger was near. She began to tap softly on the drum. Thump, thump, thump. The sound vibrated gently through the marble floors, echoing into the upper halls. Marcus climbed carefully, each step deliberate. The light from the chandelier flickered against the landing. The corridor above stretched long and quiet, too quiet. Then a faint click. The door to Amara's study opened. Marcus lunged forward, candle stand raised, but the moment he reached the doorway, a shadow stepped out. "Don't," a female voice said coldly. Brenda Osifo stood there, dressed in black from head to toe, holding a small pistol in her right hand. Her expression was calm, her hair slicked back from the rain. "You move, she dies." Marcus froze. Behind Brenda, Amara gasped. She had followed him halfway up the stairs without thinking. Now she stood at the edge of the landing, face pale, eyes wide. Brenda's gun shifted slightly toward her. Tasha's drumbeat stopped. Downstairs, the triplets whimpered, their instincts sharp. Brenda smiled. "That's better. No noise." She tilted her head. "You made a mistake, Marcus. You should have taken my offer when you had the chance." Marcus's voice was steady, low. "You think you can kill my wife in our home and walk away?" Brenda's smile didn't fade. "This is Lagos, darling. Money covers anything. You of all people should know that." Tasha stepped halfway up the staircase, drum still in hand. "Why involve innocent children?" Brenda's eyes flicked to her. "Because innocent faces buy trust. And trust buys money." Amara's voice trembled. "You're evil." "No," Brenda said simply. "I'm realistic. The world pays attention when rich families suffer. You and your husband made millions in sympathy donations while your foundation searched for a cure. But when you decided to play saint, Benjamin and I had to secure our future." "Benjamin's in jail," Marcus said sharply. "Your plan is finished." Brenda laughed quietly. "Oh, Marcus, you think men like Benjamin go to jail? He's already out." "What? Your brother's smarter than you think. He was never going to let himself rot while I handled the cleanup." She reached into her pocket with her free hand and held up a phone. "He's on his way here right now." Tasha's heart dropped. "You're lying." Brenda shrugged. "Am I?" Outside, the faint hum of an approaching engine broke the silence. The sound grew louder, tires crunching over gravel. Amara stepped back instinctively. "Marcus?" Marcus's jaw clenched. "Tasha, take the kids and hide in the guest wing. Now." Tasha didn't argue. She scooped up the triplets, ushering them quickly down the back hallway. As she moved, she whispered softly, "Quiet feet, little hearts." No sound. They disappeared into the shadows just as the front door burst open. Two men entered, Benjamin leading, face bruised but alive. Behind him, another man with a scar across his cheek, holding a black duffel bag. Brenda lowered her weapon and smiled. "Right on time." Benjamin glanced around. "Where's the maid?" Brenda shrugged. "She's hiding with the children. We'll find her later." Marcus stepped between them and Amara. "Whatever this is, end it now." Benjamin chuckled darkly. "End it? No, brother. It's just beginning. You ruined everything. The investors want results. Brenda and I promised a comeback story, a miraculous recovery for the triplets, perfectly timed for our new product launch. You turned my children into business tools, Marcus said through his teeth. Correction, Benjamin said smoothly. We turned them into assets. And now, thanks to your precious maid, they've recovered ahead of schedule. Which means their story is more valuable than ever. Marcus's rage broke. He lunged, punching Benjamin across the face. The blow sent him stumbling back, blood spurting from his lip. Brenda raised the gun again, aiming straight at Marcus's chest. Enough, she shouted. Everything froze. Tasha appeared at the end of the hall, drum in hand, eyes blazing. She began to play, not soft this time but fierce. The beat was wild, raw, commanding. It filled every corner of the house, echoing through the walls like a storm reborn. Thump. Ichumd. Thump. The triplets, hidden in the guest wing, heard it, and remembered. They began to mimic it, their tiny palms beating the air. Zion whispered, "Walk." And they did. Out of hiding. Toward the sound. Zuri clutched her little brother's hand. Tasha need help. Their feet pattered on the marble floor as they came into view, walking straight into danger. But something about their small, steady steps made even Brenda hesitate. Marcus shouted, "Stay back." But the children didn't. They stopped in front of Brenda, looking up at her with calm, fearless eyes. Then, in perfect unison, they began to clap the rhythm of Tasha's drum. Clap, 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 clap. The sound was pure and haunting. Brenda's hand trembled. For a moment, her composure cracked. She looked at the children, her lips quivering as if something deep inside her broke. "Stop it," she hissed. "Stop." Zane's small voice rose, trembling but sure. "You bet. God watch." Brenda flinched as if struck. Her eyes filled with something between fury and fear. Marcus moved fast, grabbing her wrist. The gun went off, boom, the bullet tearing into the ceiling. Tasha dropped the drum and lunged, sweeping Brenda's legs from under her the way she'd been taught by her grandmother during village defense training. The pistol skittered across the floor. Benjamin grabbed the duffel bag, pulling something out, a syringe filled with dark liquid. "Don't come closer," he shouted. But the children's rhythm didn't stop. They clapped louder, stronger, their voices rising in a chant they didn't even know they knew. Light win. Light win. The air seemed to thicken. Marcus tackled Benjamin. The syringe flew from his hand and shattered on the floor. Brenda screamed. Tasha grabbed the gun, holding it steady though her hands shook. "It's over." Police sirens wailed outside. Amara fell to her knees, clutching her children as they ran into her arms. "You did it," she sobbed. "My babies, you saved us." Brenda glared up from the floor, defeated but defiant. "You think this ends with me?" she spat. "There are people above me you can't even imagine." Tasha stared down at her, eyes hard. "Maybe. But love travels faster than fear." And in that moment, as the police stormed the mansion, the triplets clung to their mother, whispering the word that had once been impossible for them to say. Safe. The flashing red and blue lights bathed the Adeyemi mansion in an uneasy glow. Police officers swarmed the compound, snapping photos, taking statements, and carrying evidence bags marked confidential. Brenda Osifo sat on the ground in handcuffs, her once perfect hair now clinging to her rain-soaked face. Her eyes were still full of venom, but there was something else there now, fear. Benjamin stood beside her, a swollen lip and bruised pride replacing his arrogance. The officers led him toward a waiting van, his voice rising over the rain. "You'll regret this, Marcus. You think you can build an empire on pity and lies? Wait till the press gets the story." Marcus didn't answer. He just watched his brother being driven away, eyes hollow but unflinching. Inside the house, Amara sat on the couch with the triplets in her lap, wrapped in blankets. They clung to her, sleepy but safe, whispering soft words to each other. Zane murmured, "No more bad people, Mama?" Amara kissed his forehead. "No more, my love. You're safe now." Tasha stood a few steps away, watching quietly, her drum still in her hands. Her heart was racing, but she tried not to show it. The rhythm that had once been her weapon now felt like a lullaby. Marcus entered, wiping rain from his face. He looked at Tasha, his expression a mix of gratitude and exhaustion. "They're gone," he said. "Brenda and Benjamin will face trial. The police already found her lab near Victoria Island." "Good," Tasha replied softly. "But you know she wasn't lying about one thing." Marcus frowned. "Which one?" "She said there are people above her." Whoever financed this won't stop easily. Brenda wasn't the head, she was just a hand. Marcus sighed deeply. Then we'll cut off the whole arm. He turned to Amara and knelt beside her. It's over, my love. Amara smiled weakly. For now. The triplets stirred. Zuri yawned, rubbing her eyes. Tasha, a drum? Tasha smiled gently. Later, little one. You need rest. But Zane shook his head. Drum make peace. Tasha hesitated, then nodded. She sat cross-legged on the floor and began to play softly, slow, tender beats that filled the room like warm sunlight. The tension in the air slowly melted. Marcus exhaled. Amara leaned back on the couch, eyes closing for the first time in days. For a few precious moments, it felt like peace had returned. But peace never lasts long in stories like this. Just as the last echo of Tasha's drum faded, one of the police officers entered the house holding a black tablet. His face was pale. Sir, he said, addressing Marcus, we found something on Brenda's laptop. You'll want to see this. Marcus stood. What is it? The officer hesitated, then turned the screen around. A video began to play. Brenda's face appeared, calm and confident, recorded in what looked like a luxurious hotel room. If you're watching this, she said, smiling into the camera, it means the operation failed, or I've been captured. But the world deserves the truth. Marcus Adeyemi isn't the hero you think he is. For years, his foundation imported untested drugs into Nigeria under the guise of humanitarian work. My role was simple: keep his image clean and the money flowing. You can confirm this through the attached files. Marcus's stomach dropped. That's a lie. But Tasha was already scrolling. There were files attached to the video, contracts, receipts, even doctored emails, all appearing to implicate him directly. It's a setup, Amara whispered. Brenda recorded this in advance. Marcus ran his hand through his hair. If that video goes public. The officer looked grim. Sir, it already has. It was uploaded an hour ago. Every major news outlet is replaying it. People are calling you the billionaire poisoner. The room fell silent. Tasha's drum slipped from her lap, hitting the floor with a hollow sound. Amara stood slowly, her hand over her mouth. No. Marcus's phone began to vibrate endlessly. Calls, messages, notifications from the board, investors, friends. Each ping was another nail in the coffin of his reputation. He turned to Tasha, his voice breaking. They've destroyed everything. My company, my name, my family's legacy, all gone in a single video. Tasha swallowed hard. No, sir. They only destroyed the lie. The truth is still alive. He looked at her, confused. She picked up her drum and tapped it once. Your children are walking, speaking, living proof of truth. They were poisoned by greed, but healed by love. You can hide from money, but not from that. Marcus took a deep breath. You think people will believe that? Tasha nodded. They will if you show them. Amara touched his arm gently. She's right. You have to speak before others twist the story. Let them see our children. Let them see the miracle. Marcus looked between them, torn. If I go public, I'll be inviting danger again. Whoever's behind this will come for us. Tasha's gaze was steady. They already have. But fear is their rhythm and we can't dance to it anymore. Marcus stared at her, then finally nodded. All right. Tomorrow morning we hold a press conference. I'll tell the world everything, what Brenda did, what Benjamin planned, how our children were victims. Amara's lips trembled, but she smiled. And we'll stand beside you. The triplets clapped softly, not fully understanding but echoing their parents' strength. That night, as the house slept, Tasha sat by the window again. The moon cast a pale glow across the compound. Her drum rested beside her legs, silent but alive. She should have felt relief, but something tugged at her heart, a whisper, faint and persistent. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small folded paper she'd found earlier in Brenda's duffel bag. It was an invoice. The sender's name was faded, but the address was clear. Project Seraph, sponsored by BA Holdings. Her eyes widened. B.A. She looked toward Marcus's study, where his full name was engraved in gold on the door. Marcus Benjamin Adeyemi. A chill ran down her spine. Benjamin wasn't the only one connected to the operation. Someone inside Marcus's own company, someone with access to every transaction, was still working against him. Tasha closed her fist around the paper. Tomorrow's press conference might clear Marcus's name publicly, but privately, she feared the war had just begun. Outside, a black SUV idled for a few seconds on the far end of the street. The tinted window rolled down, revealing a man in a navy suit speaking into a phone. His voice was calm, confident, and chillingly familiar. "Yes," he said. "The maid survived. But don't worry. We'll handle her next." The car drove off, disappearing into the night. And in the quiet that followed, Tasha whispered to the moon, "Grandmother, guide me. The children are free, but the battle isn't over." She lifted her drum and tapped a slow, steady rhythm, one that promised strength, protection, and truth. The sound drifted through the night air, soft but unbreakable. Thump, thump. A lullaby of love preparing for war. The morning sun rose over Lagos, painting the sky gold and red. Cameras and reporters filled the Adeyemi mansion's courtyard, microphones aimed toward the grand entrance. News vans lined the street, banners read "Billionaire speaks out, Adeyemi family breaks silence." Inside, Marcus stood before a mirror, straightening his suit with trembling hands. His reflection looked older than yesterday. Beside him, Amara adjusted his tie, her face calm but her eyes hiding storms. "You don't have to do this alone," she whispered. He met her gaze. "I'm not. Not anymore." Downstairs, the triplets were with Tasha. The children were dressed in matching white outfits, symbols of purity and new beginnings. They giggled softly as Tasha helped fix Zuri's hair beads. Tasha smiled, but her mind was elsewhere, on the invoice tucked inside her shawl, on the name Project Seraph, and on the chilling voice she'd heard outside last night. She hadn't told Marcus yet. Not because she wanted to keep secrets, but because she needed proof first. Something inside her told her that whoever was behind Project Seraph was already 3 steps ahead. As Marcus and Amara walked down the stairs, Tasha looked at them and silently promised herself, "Whatever happens today, I'll protect these children." 10 a.m., the press conference. The courtyard buzzed with tension. Reporters whispered, cameras flashed, and microphones stretched forward like hungry mouths. Marcus took the podium, his face solemn. Amara stood beside him, holding Zane's hand. The triplets clung to each other, wide-eyed but brave. Tasha stayed behind them, her drum slung across her shoulder like a quiet guardian. Marcus began, his voice strong despite the tremor in his chest. 3 years ago, my children lost their ability to walk and speak. Doctors called it a mystery. I called it a curse. But today I call it what it truly was, a crime. The crowd murmured. He continued, "My family was betrayed by people we trusted. My own brother, Benjamin Adeyemi, conspired with Brenda Osifo of Island Chemist to poison my children using falsified medicine shipments under our foundation's name." Gasps rippled through the audience. Amara squeezed his hand. "They did it," Marcus said, his voice cracking, "to ruin me, to make me a villain in the eyes of the world. And now, false evidence is spreading online, claiming I was part of their crimes. But I stand here today with proof of my innocence, and with living witnesses of their cruelty." He gestured toward the triplets. 3 children who couldn't walk, couldn't speak, until a kind soul came into our lives. He turned to Tasha. "A woman who reminded us that healing begins not in hospitals but in hearts. Everyone meet Tasha Okoro, the maid who brought my children back to life." The cameras turned. Flashbulbs burst. Tasha blinked against the light, feeling suddenly exposed. Reporters shouted questions. "Miss Okoro, what did you do to make the children walk? Is it true you used traditional methods? Were you involved in the poison scandal?" Marcus raised a hand. "She did what no one else could, she loved them. When science failed, her compassion spoke a language even medicine couldn't translate." The triplets began to clap softly, their rhythm forming a gentle beat. Clap, 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 clap. The crowd went silent, mesmerized. Tasha felt tears rise as she whispered, "They remember." Then, unexpectedly, Zuri stepped forward and said clearly, "We love Tasha." Laughter and applause broke out. Even the toughest reporters smiled. For a moment, the world believed again. But then, a man stepped through the crowd. He wore a dark gray suit, sunglasses, and a lanyard with a press badge. His smile was thin, cold. He didn't raise a camera. He raised a phone. "Mr. Adeyemi," he called out loudly, voice cutting through the noise, "if you're innocent, how do you explain this?" He tapped his phone. A massive digital screen mounted on one of the news vans flickered, and a video began to play. It was grainy, low quality, but recognizable. Marcus in his office, months ago, handing over a document to Benjamin. His voice, calm, serious, saying, "Make sure these syrups reach the hospitals by next week. I want results fast." The crowd gasped. Amara's face went white. "Marcus?" He turned toward her, shaking his head. "I never said that. That's not me. It's been edited." The man in the gray suit smiled thinly. Deepfake maybe? But we've traced the audio to your verified phone number. Hard to fake that, isn't it? Chaos erupted. Cameras flashed wildly. Reporters screamed questions. Are you admitting guilt? Was your foundation a cover operation? Did you pay Brenda Osifo to take the fall? Marcus's voice rose, desperate. It's a lie. They're twisting everything. Amara tried to calm him, but the crowd surged forward. Security struggled to hold the line. Tasha stepped forward quickly, her instincts sharp. Get the children inside, she shouted. But before they could move, a familiar black SUV pulled up by the gate. The door opened. A man stepped out, tall, dark-skinned, wearing a navy suit. The same man from the night before. He adjusted his tie and smiled faintly. Good morning, everyone. My name is Barrister Damilola Ogun, CEO of Seraph Pharmaceuticals. I'm here to clear some confusion. The name hit Tasha like thunder. Brenda Osifo. Damilola Ogun. 2 letters, same initials. The true head. He continued, his voice smooth as poison. Mr. Adeyemi was, in fact, a silent partner in our medical program, Project Seraph. He invested heavily in our research to treat delayed development in children. Unfortunately, due to his personal family crisis, the project faced ethical shortcuts. Brenda was my employee. She acted under orders. Marcus's jaw dropped. That's a lie. Damilola smiled wider. Then explain your signature on these documents, sir. He handed a file to a reporter. Page 3, Fund Transfers, signed by Marcus Adeyemi. You can verify with the Corporate Affairs Commission. The crowd erupted again. Reporters shouted. Cameras clicked. Tasha stepped in front of Marcus, her eyes blazing. You forged those too. Just like Brenda did. Damilola tilted his head. And who are you? Someone who knows the sound of truth, she said quietly. He chuckled. Ah, the maid with the drum. Yes, I've heard of you. You've become quite the symbol, Africa's miracle nanny. He leaned closer. But symbols are easy to break. Tasha's fingers tightened on the drum. She began to tap, slow, steady, deliberate. The sound carried through the courtyard, cutting through the shouting and noise. The triplets looked up at her, remembering. They began to clap along again. Clap, 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 clap. The rhythm spread, guards, reporters, even bystanders paused, drawn to it. Tasha raised her voice. This rhythm healed what their poison broke. This rhythm speaks life into truth. She turned to the crowd. Look at these children. Look at their eyes. You think a guilty father could hide love like this? The reporters fell silent. Damilola frowned. Enough of this nonsense. He turned to leave, but police officers blocked his path. The officer who had shown Marcus the tablet stepped forward, holding a phone. Sir, we've just traced the metadata of that video you aired. It was uploaded from your company's IP address, Seraph Pharmaceuticals. The courtyard gasped again. Marcus's eyes widened. You just exposed yourself. Damilola's calm shattered. No, you don't understand. But the officers were already cuffing him. He struggled as cameras turned on him now. This isn't over, he roared. You can't silence Seraph. Marcus turned to Tasha, emotion flooding his face. You did it again. You saved us. Tasha shook her head. No, sir. They saved you. She looked at the triplets, who were still clapping softly, their small smiles radiant in the morning light. The crowd, moved by the children's courage, began to applaud too. What began as a scandal had turned into something purer, a testimony of resilience and love. Amara wrapped her arms around Tasha. How can we ever repay you? Tasha smiled through tears. Just keep them safe. That's all the payment my heart needs. Marcus placed a hand over his chest. You'll never be just a maid in this house again. Your family. The triplets giggled and ran to hug her. Mama Tasha, they shouted in unison. The cameras captured it all. 3 children who once couldn't walk, now running, laughing, alive. And as Tasha lifted her drum one last time, she played a new rhythm. Slow, joyful, victorious. Thump, thump, da-da. The crowd cheered. The truth at last had found its sound. But as the applause echoed, far away in a hidden office, a man watched the live broadcast with a cold smile. He turned to his assistant and said, "Let them celebrate. Project Seraph was only phase 1. The screen flickered and went black.